Right then, welcome back to Iron Sports. Now, year after year, the nation's top athletes compete across the sporting spectrum to bring glory to their respective schools and indeed the country. They often have to battle injuries and other physical and psychological adversities. But what about the mental side of sport? We know of how the athletes are prepared physically, but mentally, how do they go about that? Well, here to delve into that and tell us more is sports psychologist Olivia Rose, who is here to help us understand how important it is for athletes to pay attention to their mental preparation. Olivia, welcome back to Iron Sports.
Thank you for having me.
Now, right off the bat, does sports psychology really work?
That's an interesting question. And before I immediately tell you yes, sports psychology definitely works. It's usually the mental and emotional preparation of athletes, coaches, and a whole host of other staff members that work in preparing athletes. So, of course, because we operate in an atmosphere, an environment that requires relating with each other, understanding each other and our different idiosyncrasies and personalities, of course, by all means, sports psychology is definitely important and it works. In addition to that, the field of sports psychology allows persons to get individual preparation as well as group preparation depending on the sport played. So it is definitely very important in helping persons to manage difficult emotions, overcoming fears, anxieties, setting goals, achieving these goals, working towards achieving them, and having a positive attitude, learning from mistakes, learning the value in losing and coming again, but not just losing and giving up. So, of course, definitely sports psychology that's just a fraction of what we do. So it definitely is important and it works, and it may take a longer time to work. It may not be immediately, but it does work.
Not an overnight fix.
Definitely not.
All right, now you mentioned goal setting earlier, and a lot of athletes, whatever sport it may be, they have their goals, either they set them for themselves or they have these goals set out for them by their coaches. But how do they, setting goals is one thing, how do they go about working on these goals and achieving these goals or targets?
All right, so achieving the targets, again, depending on the sport, will take time. So time is a very important ingredient in achieving anything, but sustenance of motivation during that time varies and it will fluctuate, and there are so many other unforeseen things that can happen during the process of working to achieve a goal, which is why, again, working with mental preparation or helping people to understand that these emotions will come up, they will go, and they can be sustained for a longer period of time, are some of the services that are provided through sports psychological services in terms of mental preparation. But it's more than just a sustenance of these, of working towards achieving your goal, because it's extremely important in setting goals that there is a target, there are people that's accountable, that you're accountable to people, that there is support for you to achieve these goals, because again, goals are very important, but if you don't work, goals won't be achieved on their own.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. I was speaking to Johan Blake after a track meet recently where he opened his season running a 400, and when I asked him about his specific goals for the season, well, his remark was, I don't have goals, I have dreams. So how is it more challenging working with the junior sportsmen and or junior athletes or the senior ones? Because we sometimes would think that maybe the older persons are, the more they'll understand, and they can take varied approaches compared to juniors. But you've been in the field. Who is more difficult to work with, the seniors or the juniors?
Well, I'll say it all depends, but I'm gonna choose the seniors sometimes, just because by a particular age, your personality and a lot of your traits would have already been developed. So with children and junior athletes, they are easier to teach certain techniques. They are also more receptive sometimes. And, you know, they are less apprehensive as to what this is, because as you get older, you start wondering about a lot of things that you didn't wonder about, and your cognitive processes are completely different. So with the juniors, it's a little bit easier, but I also know that there are some athletes who they do not like to use the word goals because they think, again, this is going back to their belief system and understanding beliefs and culture and how this impacts your overall
or
performance.
do they feel that by saying
Because-
goals, it adds pressure to
Right,
them?
so sometimes it can add pressure. Sometimes they feel that if they allow others to know that they have these desires or this is what they're working towards, they'll be jinxed. And then people use the word goals, wishes, dreams interchangeably. But
Okay.
because the field of sports psychology is a scientific one, we use terms such as goals. And there are specific techniques that we use to help people to achieve goals and monitor goals and which goals we consider to be more challenging or easier to achieve.
All right. Who are some of the teams and athletes you've worked with, and how do you go about monitoring the agendas you set out for them? Quickly.
Monitoring the agenda is, again, going to be based on a team or an individual-based sport. So, for instance, the goals for team-based sports such as football or netball is going to be completely different from, say, swimming or track and field. So it is dependent on the sport, and I have worked with athletes who compete in almost 13 different sports at various levels. So monitoring those goals usually start from an individual base, and then there has to be a collective goal, especially if it's a team-based sport that people are buying into, so that accountability is clearer and people are more motivated towards working towards achieving that.
One team
those
I know
goals.
that has used a sports psychologist over the years would be the West Indies team, because the West Indies would have declined or been on the decline for 20 odd years. So how in demand are sports psychologists?
Sports psychologists are in great demand, even though people think it's a luxury training or a luxury item. It's very essential and affordable. And yes, I must commend Cricket West Indies for the initiative of taking on Caribbean sports psychologists and sports psychologists from across the region to help in the mental and emotional preparation of the teams and just understanding the cultural nuances that we operate in. And I've seen where even champs, in preparation for the boys and girls championships that will be soon, schools have employed the services of sports psychologists, and of course the University of the West Indies Mona campus. And the field is growing, and people are now understanding the importance of mental and emotional preparation and just the different things that can affect athletes, especially student athletes, as they navigate their dual roles and dual careers from a very early age, and how much it's very essential for mental and emotional preparation, just ensuring the total athlete is
Olivia
sustained.
Rose, thank you so very
Thank you
much.
for having
I
me.
wish we could go on, but my producer is all up in my head. You get it, psychology.
That's okay.
All right. So, Olivia Rose, thank you so very much for being here with us on Iron Sports. We take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be discussing some football. Soon come.